Hello everyone, today we will talk about South Korea. The purpose of this video presentation is to provide Australian firms with a clear country analysis of South Korea as a potential destination for international expansion. This presentation evaluates South Korea's institutional environment, level of development, cultural context, and trade conditions. The aim is to identify the main opportunity and challenges foreign firms may face in the Korean market. South Korea is located in East Asia and is a highly industrialized and export-oriented economy. Over the past few decades, it has successfully transformed from a developed country into an advanced economy that is deeply integrated into the global market. Today, South Korea is characterized by a democratic political system, a market-based economic system, and a civil law legal framework. This presentation is structured around 5 questions. It first examines South Korea's political economy and legal environment in a globalized context. It then assesses economic and human development, explores cultural distance between South Korea and Australia, applies trade theory to analyze trade specialization, and finally evaluates South Korea's trade policy environment. First, we will talk about question 1. Globalization has played a central role in shaping South Korea's political economy. As global markets have become more integrated, South Korea has benefited from increased trade and investment. Lower trade barriers and greater cross-border flows of goods and capital have allowed Korean firms to compete internationally. This outward-oriented growth model has driven rapid industrialization, productivity growth, and technological upgrading. At the same time, production globalization has embedded South Korea into global value chains. Korean firms increasingly focus on high-value activities such as advanced manufacturing, electronics, and technology-intensive industries. This has intensified global competition and increased the need for efficient domestic institutions. To fully understand these changes, it is important to consider South Korea's political economy. Politically, South Korea operates under a democratic system. Democratic governance improves transparency, accountability, and policy predictability. In a globalized environment, this helps maintain investor confidence and reduces long-term uncertainty. Economically, South Korea follows a market-based system. Market economies encourage innovation and entrepreneurship. In South Korea, the system supports export-led growth and helps firms adapt to changes in global demand and technology. South Korea's legal system also shapes international business activity. The country operates under a civil law system based on comprehensive written laws. This provides a clear and stable framework for regulating economic activity. However, this system can create challenges for Australian firms. Compared with common law, civil law relies less on judicial interpretation and more on strict legal codes. As a result, contracts in South Korea are often less flexible, and the compliance requirements are higher. Australian firms may face more complex regulations and a greater need for local legal expertise. Understanding the legal environment before market entry is therefore essential. The next section will assess South Korea's economic and human development to identify which indicators matter most for Australian firms.
Thanks for Yixin sharing for question 1, and I'm Xuan Zhao, and now I'm going to discuss question 2, and it's the question below. A commonly used measure of economic development is gross national income per capita, which is GNI, which reflects the average income earned by residents of a country. South Korea's GNI per capita places firmly among high-income economies, reflecting a strong industrial base, advanced manufacturing sector, and global competitiveness in industries such as electronics, automotive productions, shipbuilding, and semiconductors. However, as highlighted in Week 3, GNI per capita alone can be misleading because it does not account for differences in the cost of living. To address this limitation, purchasing power parity, which is PPP adjusted income, provides a more accurate comparison of living standards and consumer purchasing power across countries. South Korea's PPP adjusted income remains high, indicating substantial disposable income and strong domestic consumer markets. For international business, this suggests favorable conditions for selling value-added and premium products. Despite these strengths, income-based measures have limitations. They provide only a static snapshot and do not capture income inequality, demographic differences, or unrecorded economic activities. Nevertheless, South Korea's sustained economic growth, innovation capacities, and integration into global value chain point to a highly developed and stable economic environment. While economic indicators focus on income and output, human development captures broader aspects of well-being. Influenced by Amartya Sen's capabilities approach, the Human Development Index, which is HDI, combines three dimensions: life expectancy, education, and PPP adjusted income. South Korea performs exceptionally well on HDI components. Life expectancy is high, reflecting advanced healthcare system and strong public health outcome. Educational attainment is also a major strength, with very high literacy rate and a high proportion of the popularity holding tertiary qualification. This contributes to a highly skilled and productive workforce, which is particularly attractive to foreign firms seeking advanced technical, managerial, and research capabilities. High HDI performance also indicates strong institution, social stability, and effective infrastructure. From an international business perspective, these factors reduce operational risk and support long-term investment by ensuring reliable human capital, predictable business practice, and social cohesion. For Australia firms considering establish a presence in South Korea, human development is the most important measure. While high GNI and PPP adjusted income indicates strong market potential, HDI provides deeper insights into the quality of workforce, institutional reliability, and long-term stability of business operation. A highly educated labor force supports innovation, productivity, and efficient knowledge transfer between Australia parent firms and Korea subsidiary. Strong health outcomes reduce substantiation and labor turnover, which high living standards contribute to political and social stability. These factors collectively lower business risk and enhance likelihood of successful long-term investment. In contrast, income measurements alone do not fully capture these structural advantages. Therefore, although economic development indicators remain important for assessing market size and consumer purchasing power, human development is of great strategic importance for Australian firms seeking sustainability and competitive advantages in South Korea. Now my part is over. Let's welcome Xu Zhangyi to introduce question 3 for us.
Hi, I'm Zhang Yixu. Now I will discuss the cultural distance between South Korea and Australia. In many South Korean workplaces, people place strong importance on hierarchy and seniority. Teams can be close, and people often avoid open conflict. When things are unclear, they usually prefer clear plans and rules. In Australia, workplaces often feel more equal. People speak more directly, and it is normal to challenge ideas in meetings. we may also accept change and uncertainty more easily. So it's easy to see why Australian firms entering South Korea may face cultural gaps. In this section, I will measure the distance and ask, are they becoming more similar or more different? Hobbes tests cultural dimensions is a framework that compares national culture using value dimensions, so we can quickly see where two countries differ most. I use scores from the cultural factor database, and several gaps stand out. The largest gap is indulgence. Australia is more open and relaxed, while South Korea is more restrained, with stronger social expectations. Uncertainty avoidance is also very different. In South Korea, organizations prefer clearer rules, detailed planning, and fewer last-minute changes. Long-term orientation shows a big gap too. South Korea scores 86, making it a pragmatic, long-term orientation culture. Societies with this orientation show ability to adapt traditions to a modern context. So the conclusion is that there is indeed a cultural distance between Australia and South Korea, and it cannot be summarized in one sentence. It's a combination of multiple dimensions. GLOBE is a large international research project. Its key idea is simple. Culture shapes what people expect from leaders and teams. So it explains real workplace behavior. In South Korea, often discussed under the Confucian-Asia cluster, leadership is linked to respect, seniority, and strong team loyalty. Disagreement is often handled carefully and indirectly. In Australia, often linked to the Anglo cluster, people may expect more participation, speaking up and debate ideas can feel normal and positive. This matters because cultural distance shows up fast in daily work. For example, an Australian manager may read silence as agreement, but in South Korea, silence can mean, I don't want to disagree in public. So that's the behavior side. How leadership, meetings, and feedback can feel different. Now let's quantify the cultural gap using the Colgate Sign Index. It uses 4 Hofstede dimensions, as we can see on the slide. In simple terms, we square the score differences, standardize by each dimension's variance, and average them. Using the chart, distance is about 1.45. It's mainly driven by uncertainty avoidance and hierarchy. South Korea scores much higher uncertainty avoidance, so clear rules and planning matter more. It also scores higher on power distance, which supports stronger seniority and hierarchy norms at work. Overall, this suggests a meaningful, though not extreme distance, so Australian firms should still localize management and communication. So the distance is real. Now the key question is, are they getting closer over time? My answer is, selective convergence, but cultural distance still matters. The overall gap is real but moderate, so it's workable, but it needs adjustment. In some areas, I do see convergence. Global tours, more international experience, and younger professionals can make everyday work habits look more similar. But some differences are stable, especially uncertainty caution and hierarchy, which still shape decisions and communication. So misunderstandings can happen if we assume same as Australia. For Australian firms in South Korea, the advice is, build trust early and use senior sponsorship when needed. Be clear on rules, timelines, and risk controls. Manage disagreement carefully, often through private channels, and show long-term commitment through people development and stable partnerships. That's how they manage a meaningful cultural gap while benefiting from areas where the two countries may slowly be getting closer. Next, Jifeng Yang will answer the fourth question by analyzing the trade specialization between two countries.
My name is Xiehui Wu, and I will explain question 5. Now let's look at South Korea's trade policy. South Korea's trade policy can be best described as a managed trade model. Even though Korea is widely recognized as a highly open economy with strong global integration, openness is only part of the story. In practice, Korea combines free trade commitment with targeted and deliberate government intervention. The strategic plan has been central to Korea's export-driven development. By keeping markets open while selectively supporting key domestic industries, Korea has been able to move from a low-income economy to a high-technology global leader. Now let's look at key trade policy instruments implemented by South Korea. So first, Korea relies heavily on free trade agreement. It has FTAs with the United States, the European Union, Australia, and is a member of RCEP. This agreement reduces tariff and non-tariff barriers, helping Korea exporters access wide markets and integrate into global value chains. And second, Korea used strong subsidies and industrial policy, especially for high technology sectors. The government provides large-scale research and development funding, tax incentives, and infrastructure support for industries such as semiconductors. And a good example is the 2023 National Semiconductor Strategy, which commits billions to strengthen domestic chip production and innovation. And finally, despite its openness, South Korea applies a selective protection in politically sensitive sectors. Agriculture, particularly rice, is safeguarded through tariffs and codes to protect rural communities and maintain social stability. This shows that South Korea's trade policy balances global competitiveness with domestic political considerations. So what are the trade theories supported by these policies? South Korea's use of FTAs aligns closely with comparative advantage. By lowering trade barriers, South Korea can specialize in sectors where it has strong productivity, such as electronics, automotive manufacturing, and shipbuilding, allowing resources to flow into its most efficient industries. Its industrial policy strongly reflects the infant industry argument. Samsung, Hyundai, and POSCO all benefit from early-stage protection and government support. Temporary protection allowed these firms to grow, build scale, and eventually become internationally competitive. And finally, Korea's semiconductor sector illustrates strategic trade policy. Chips are a global industry with high entry barriers and strong first-mover advantages. South Korea's firms such as Samsung and SK-On Hynix has gained major and global market share, partially because government intervention helped them compete in a field dominated by only a few powerful global players. Even though Korea's trade strategy is highly successful, it also produced several challenges. Economically, it has generated great innovation and global competitiveness, but these benefits are uneven. Large export-oriented firms gain the most, while many small firms face greater pressure from international competition. And there are also strategic vulnerabilities. Korea's high-tech industries depend heavily on imported critical minerals, which expose the country to supply disruptions and geopolitical risks. And finally, political realities continue to influence trade policy. The continued protection of agriculture highlights how national interest, rural stability, and domestic politics still shape Korea's decisions, even with an otherwise liberal trade framework. So to conclude, South Korea's trade policy is a hybrid model that combines free trade openness with strategic government intervention. And this approach supports several trade theories: comparative advantage, the infant industry argument, and strategic trade policy, while helping Korea build globally competitive industries. At the same time, Korea's model demonstrates that trade policy must balance economic efficiency with political, social, and strategic considerations. And here is our reference.
Hello everyone, I'm Jingfeng Yang. I will answer question 4 using Adam's match and David Recorder's trade theories to explain which industry South Korea should specialize in, and which theory Korea's government should rely on more. I will do this in 3 steps. First, Smith's absolutely advantage and what South Korea should export. Second, Recorder's comparative advantage. and what South Korea should still specialize in, even if it's not the best at everything. Third, my final choice and reasons. First is Adam Smith. Smith argued that a country should specialize in and export goods it can be produced at lower cost and higher efficiency. This is called absolutely advantage. From this view, South Korea's strength often comes through things. Strong R&D, large-scale precision manufacturing, and major supply chains with strong quality management. So, under absolutely advantage, the first key area is semiconductors and electronics. For example, memory chips, display panels, and high-end electronic components. South Korea stands out in higher and mass production efficiency in these sectors. The second area is automobile phones and advanced manufacturing. South Korea firms are good at turning technology into reliable, scalable products, including competitive vehicles, powertrains, and increasingly important EV-related technologies. The third area is shipbuilding and offshore equipment. South Korea has long been competitive in large and high-tech ships, showing strong engineering capability and production efficiency. To warm up Smith ports if we judge mainly by who can make it cheaper and more efficiently. South Korea should concentrate on this high-tech manufacturing and engineering industry and export to global markets. Next is David Recorder. Recorder focus on less on who is best and more on computer cost. Even if a country doesn't have an absolutely advantage in many products, it should specialize where its opportunity cost is lower and trade can still benefit both sides. With comparative advantage, the key question is where is South Korea's best use of resources? South Korea has limited land and natural resources, but strong human capital, engineering talent, and technology accumulation, so it makes sense to focus on high-value-added, high-tech intensive industries that require skill and strong organization. So, under Recorder's framework, South Korea's specialization can be grouped into three areas. First, tech-intensive manufacture such as semiconductors, precision parts, and advanced materials. Second, capital and engineering-intensive industries like high-end shipbuilding and industrial equipment. Third, high-value service close linked to manufacture like R&D, industrial design, and digital solution. Comparative advantage also reminds us South Korea doesn't need to do everything at home for resource-intensive and low-value-added goods. South Korea can import them and keep domestic resources for high-value stages. Nor the key choice. I believe South Korea's government should rely more on Recorder's comparative advantage, while still using Smith's absolutely advantage as an important complement. The reason why is in the real time, absolutely advantage often changes. Technology spreads, computers catch on, and cost structure shift. Comparative advantage based on opportunity cost is more suitable for long-term industry choices. The reason too is South Korea's key constraint is limited natural resources, while its strength is talent and technology. Comparing advantage clearly supports investing scale resources into high-value-added industry for higher overall returns. The reason three comparative advantage fits the logic of global value chains. Korea doesn't need to be the most at every step, but it can be most competitive in critical stage like advanced manufacture key components and R&D and design. In conclusion, South Korea should focus on semiconductors, electronics, advanced auto, and shipbuilding. Policy should prioritize comparative advantage supported by absolutely advantage.